All right, I'm going to call the meeting of the June 10th infrastructure to order. Roll call, Joel Kriete's here, and Lisa Haderlein's here. John Lavallee, myself, is here. Rob Lamps is here from the Public Works, and Mike Rousey is here from Water Sewer. Right on. And Deb is here, acting City Administrator. And now I want to, a quorum is present. We have one member who is going to be here on the phone. We're going to call him now.
Hello.
Hi, Matt. You hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Perkins is in the meeting.
Great. Now I want to open the floor up to public comments. Seeing none. We will go to, can I get a approval of the minutes from April 7th?
Make a motion to approve minutes from April 7th.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Haderlein, a second by Kriete. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next we're going to move on to number 5 on the agenda, discussion action regarding budgeted funds for this year's road work. As everybody is aware, we budgeted $700,000, and the bids came in for Air Street at $400,000-ish?
$391.
$391. So we have some money left over, and we want to consider spending it yet this year. And there was some interest in maybe picking up the pavers that are in the intersections on Air and filling that in with stamped concrete. There was also some interest in possibly doing the alleys. And then skip patching was also mentioned, putting some more money into skip patching, and then other options. I got some thoughts on this stuff, and I'm going to put my thoughts out, and then I'll let y'all put your thoughts out. Okay. First off, regarding the stamped concrete, while I believe this is a worthwhile venture to look at, to take out the pavers and put in concrete to even those intersections up, I think it's going to be premature with the overlay, mainly because typically an overlay's most vulnerable time for rutting is going to be in the first few months after it's done. And so to put a loaded concrete truck on it to put in the concrete to do the stamped concrete, I think is premature at this point. With regards to the alleys, I'm a little bit concerned with the alleys just because we don't know what's underneath the pavement that's there now. So that's going to take some more exploration, maybe some more cores, which is going to push the timeline back. And I really would like to get this out as soon as possible, whatever we decide to do, to get it done yet this year before it gets the weather turns on us, so to speak. The next option is skip patching. I think this is a worthwhile option. Lord knows we in town we have plenty of places we can skip patch. So I think that's that is a worthwhile option. I had one other thought with regards to the money, and I was thinking, Matt had brought up that we're using the first round here on Air Street, and there's some people in town. A lot of our neighborhoods need some love, right? And so, what if we were to take the money and fix some of the neighborhood roads, so to speak. Now that opens up another can of worms, so to speak. We did a bunch of coring. We paid for Gary to hire a testing company to take 90 cores all over the city. They found out what's there from an asphalt standpoint, what's there from a base standpoint, and what's there from a subgrade standpoint, all over the city. They did a report, which I do have a copy of. But just to, cut to the chase a little bit on the copy, what I did was, because all that data is in tables, right? And they're kind of hard to read if you don't know what you're looking at. They're kind of hard to read. So what I did was I went and made, sorry. I took what was in the tables, and what I would try to do is to look at this from a base standpoint. What's underneath the concrete? I mean, what's underneath the asphalt, right? Because we're aware that a lot of our roads are built on what's called bank run. All right, bank run aggregate is literally aggregates pulled out of the ground. It's full of sand. It's full of rounds. It's not very stable. So what I did was I using the core data, I went and I made a color-coded chart of our streets with what's underneath them from an aggregate standpoint. I didn't go down as far as the subgrade. A lot of our subgrade is unfortunately silty clay, and that's no good either. But
What does PCC stand for?
oh, concrete. Portland cement concrete.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. Now there was a number of areas on here where a core was at one end of the street and a core was at the other end of the street, and I just figured if they're both the same, then I took some liberties and set up that ran all the way through, right? So there's some of that. There's some where it changes, like Burbank. Burbank's got a core that shows concrete and it's got another core that shows crust aggregate. Anyway, and then all the red is bank run basically, and there's a lot of red on here, unfortunately. A lot of the yellow, a lot of the orange is our newer subdivisions. All right, those are all done with with crushed aggregate, like is standard practice now. So that's good. So we could very well use the money, $200,000 or so, to fix some of these streets, I think, with mill and overlays if we wanted to. That's all I was trying to find out. So anyway, that's our options, and I'll throw it up to discussion.
So question, so if we were to, so the roads that are red on here, they need to be just redone. I mean, they need more than just
more than a mill and overlay,
Okay,
right?
but like I'm looking at, for instance, Lincoln, where it's orange, where it actually has crushed aggregate under it. That condition of that street is horrible. It's a block from my house, and every time I accidentally turn down there.
You got to remember, though,
Yeah, but that would be a road that we could
yeah,
do, and there's something good underneath it.
and overlay is typically designed to last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, ours probably have 30 on them.
Right,
So,
right.
so even if the base is good, eventually you're going to get cracks in the overlay, which can let water in and it's
Yeah.
going to go.
Right,
And like that area where you're talking about on Lincoln Street,
yeah,
even though it shows aggregate, the chances that basically, like, it is bad. It's heaving, it's alligatored.
yeah,
So I think what Alderman Lavallee is suggesting is maybe in an area like, say, Joanne Lane or Shadow Drive, where we or Timber Drive, where maybe we have a lot of alligator cracking, or not alligator cracking, but we have a lot of raveling, especially like Park Point, where it's just thin.
It's just thin, right?
You know,
Park Point's thin.
That top layer was just done thin and it's coming apart. You could just see it's in the curves and the gutters. Like a mill and overlay would be really good in that location. That would remedy that problem.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you can see pock marks and craters and all that, that's probably not a good mill and overlay. But something that's sort of in generally mid-grade condition, that would be where it would last the longest.
And even though, I mean, once again, I feel for a lot of these areas in the older part of town.
Yeah.
That it's probably been a while. But even, you know, the Park Points or the Oak Grove Crossings or the you know, down here, can't remember what they're called, but.
Countryside, Country Brook?
Yeah, Country Brook and stuff, right? I mean, those are 30 years old too, right? So I mean, we're really asking a lot of our streets, you know, in a lot of these areas.
A lot of your red streets are considered to be a complete redo, right? Based on that ground-up condition?
They're probably more,
It's going to be more involved, more money?
Yeah, we're gonna have to try to come up with some strategies to do those as cost-effective as possible. But yeah, they're a lot more, they're not a mill and overlay. That's-
Sometimes, you know, they've been doing more where they have base stabilization where they grind the road and basically work it into subgrade and then add cement.
Right.
That might be options in those areas, but it's certainly not going to be just a quick mill and overlay. And
No.
if you do, you know, like Second Street, if you go down Second Street, I think in between McKinley, West Burbank, and East Brown, even though it was overlaid a very recent overlay, you can see areas where it is alligator cracking and rutting, and it's starting to come apart.
Mhm.
So I guess what are the priorities? Because this is now we're looking at, we will be looking at the plan for the 5-year, right?
Yeah, and
Improvements.
unfortunately, the 5-year roads that Gary's picked out are kind of reconstructs, which, well, I mean, good and bad. I mean, they're going to use up the money, though. They're definitely going to use up the money. But
Right, but
Better either. Right? They're not getting any better either.
no,
Right.
no, and they're fairly important streets also.
Mhm.
So, yep.
So I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would suggest, once you decide we're in item 5, A, B, C, or D, that if it isn't A, B, or C, and D would be this plan in front of us, that we consult with Gary on what he thinks is best, because remembering he's doing a master plan for our bond in the fall.
Right.
And so a lot of that work is already in progress, and so we don't want to have to pay him to redo a bunch of things. We could get him in here maybe next month.
Yep.
He just got back from vacation today, so if we can get him here next month, we'd still have some time to use these funds and get his input on where he thinks they could be best applied.
Yeah. We
but
can't even,
isn't this map?
that map was the preliminary version
Okay.
of what.
So this was before there was data.
That is with some of the data. That's why Alderman Lavallee said that a lot of Gary's areas are total reconstruction. So, you know, like Second Street, portions of Lincoln,
Okay.
you know, McKinley.
McKinley, yeah.
And especially, you know, West McKinley, that's a big, wide street. That's, you know, kind of got some
Oh,
light
yeah.
commercial on it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's some preliminary data he provided us at our last quarterly meeting that we had with staff and Gary. When
Okay.
we were discussing, he was trying to work our bond amount into
Okay.
what he could present
Gotcha.
for options.
And I will say that, you know, preliminarily, working off of last year's numbers, so with 225,000 from MFT, for all skip patching, if it's about $40 per yard like it was, it'll be 5,600 square yards of skip patching, which is roughly 24 feet wide, so like a full neighborhood road wide for 2,000 feet.
Yeah, if you remember when we were doing skip patching before, we got like 10, 11 blocks,
Yeah.
if I remember right. I don't know if that's still works out to that, but I would just throw that number in your head with regards. And what we'd want to do in order to maximize the dollars is pick a bunch of streets together if we're going to do that, because then they don't have to move, right? So anyway, does Matt, you have any thoughts?
Which topic are we talking about right now? It's very hard to hear you, John.
No, we're still on 5, Matt.
Honestly, I don't know what you guys are deciding on with that 5, because I can't hear anything John was saying.
What? You couldn't hear me?
So,
I hear Deb just fine.
Oh, but you don't hear me. I'm sorry.
Are
Yeah,
you speaking in the mic?
I am speaking in the mic, but it's not coming through because you're on the phone and you're not on the mic.
Okay.
I
I can hear you better.
had that same issue before when I was calling in for a few meetings also. I couldn't hardly hear anybody.
Yeah.
What we're trying to decide is to A, B, C, D, which one do we want to do? And I don't, did you hear me when I was talking about why A and B are kind of problematic at this point?
Well, yeah, I think the one you were talking about for the alleys, because it was going to take too long to get all that stuff.
Right, we need some more input.
Well,
And then the second one, I did not hear why.
The stamped concrete?
Yeah, I
Pausing
did not
on
hear
that,
why for your reasoning.
The stamped concrete was basically because I didn't want to have loaded concrete trucks sitting on new asphalt.
Pausing it, right? Just
Could cause, yeah.
doing it at a later time.
Yeah, I would, once again, I think it's a worthwhile project. I just don't think it's a worthwhile project at this time.
And since I'm at work right now, I'm kind of doing multiple things. What's C and D?
Skip patching, more basically doing what we're doing with the 200,000 MFT money, just basically doubling that. And then D, I had suggested to actually do some mill and overlay on some of the streets we have that, where it would do good, where they have good base. In around the neighborhood somewhere.
If we're not going to do the concrete stamp, I still think that we need to lift those pavers up. Because if we're going to do that street and not do that, then we're not doing the whole thing, and it's going to look bad. If we're trying to do this, we should do it the right way the first time.
If I can jump in, my recommendation, given the few options,
can you hear Rob okay, Matt?
No.
so can you hear me now?
Very little.
We're going to have him come up to the front.
Okay.
How about now?
Awesome.
Okay. One of the things that I would consider among this is, these pavers haven't been touched since 2006, 2007, 2008, when the road was reconstructed. If we put stamped concrete down, obviously it'll be too soon for the pavement, because the pavement will have, it'll still be a little flexible. I think if we were to do something like a stamped asphalt, the paver or the stamped concrete or the stamped asphalt both have dyes, which I think will fade over time and wear. I would recommend we just have a company come in and reset and re-level the bricks and make any sort of repairs if possible. It's lasted quite a long time like that, and if we just redo that subgrade and that leveling material, that might get us where we need to be without going, out on a limb.
Yeah, if you guys really think, because with the stamped concrete, because of the new asphalt and rolling out concrete trucks, then you need to lift the pavers up at least and level them out.
We can get a price on both,
And then
right?
also that that one part on, by Park Street, on Air Street, that still needs to be fixed at that time too,
Yeah.
the ribbon on that crosswalk.
The only other thing I just, for information, it would be, you know, that this road project, I forget what the completion, I think it was 25 working days, so we could be talking about 5 weeks of, Air Street being torn up. If we hold off and do the brick leveling the following year or in the spring, it might lessen the total impact on the summer season for the downtown businesses. But that's up to this body.
All right, thank you.
I have a question on the alleys. So do all the businesses have their goods delivered through the alleys and not Air Street? Are the trucks prohibited on Air Street?
I don't know.
No. There's no, Air Street's a minor collector. There is truck traffic that goes down Air Street to deliver. There is stuff in the front. Majorly that stuff goes to the back, but you know, we do have garbage service that goes down Air Street to empty all the cans out. You know, Air Street does see quite a bit of truck traffic, and the alleys too.
Well, like to John's point, if we're gonna let this settle, you know, and do it right, you know, we can't control all these trucks coming down Air Street, so if there's provisions to keep them either in a different spot to load and unload, which I know is terrible, based on where your business is located, but then we put all this money into that, and these trucks do, like what you say, the rutting, we kinda,
I would think.
how are we
that-
protecting our money, our investment, and our work?
I would think that a standard delivery truck wouldn't weigh as much as a loaded concrete or cement truck. You know, they're going to be delivering, you know, goods, you know, mail, paper products, supplies, and it's going to be spread over more axles than just a cement truck.
I just didn't know if it was an issue or not. I don't see how the commerce works during the day.
No, I mean, I would be somewhat concerned with a garbage truck if he's at the end of his route, because they always
Yeah.
I've heard that they can be somewhat overloaded when they're at the end of their route. But as far as your standard delivery trucks, no, I don't see an issue.
How do we get the information on the alleys as far as what may be under them?
It would be more core sampling and testing. In the alleys, it's going to be not great.
Right.
Just judging by the look of it, and then on top of it, all the utilities and stuff that'll have to be ground around the objects.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a unique one to take on. I think our infrastructure is okay. You know, we've sent a camera down the western alley, and it looks okay. We don't really have a whole lot of sinkholes back there, but all of the businesses, the majority of the businesses, their sanitary does go to the alleys.
Hasn't the mayor talked about if there is a downtown TIF, including the alleys in that? So that would be a factor in not.
We know how many feet of alleys we have?
Yeah.
I could do a quick look up. Are you just talking about downtown Air Street?
Yeah. So, second.
Well, personally, I would favor, if we're talking about 5, I would favor doing more skip patching this year, because there's going to be a lot of there are going to be a lot of areas that that aren't going to get any attention for a long time. And I understand the whole idea of trying to take care of something before it's even worse, but we're already doing that downtown. And I think to have more activity at this point throughout the community would look better, because people want to know, what are we doing with the funds? And if we say we did Air Street and we did Park Point, for instance, or Shadow Creek, I think a lot of people are going to be pretty unhappy with that,
Except the Shadow Creek.
except the Shadow Creek folks. And that's one neighborhood versus people throughout the city actually seeing some of these really, really horrible
Well,
roads
hold on a
getting some
second, hold on a
attention.
second, though. Are we doing, we're not doing skip patching on the horribles, are we, though?
It's a
Well,
rebuild.
I'm doing, so skip patching is gonna be on areas like, the rest of Fifth Street, or the utility cuts on Dewey, or the
Yeah.
utility cuts on Kennedy, the utility cuts on Harvard Hills Road, the utility cuts on Crowley Road. Maybe some localized bad spots. It's gonna be spread out, you know, it's
Yeah.
gonna be similar to last year where everybody kind of gets some attention, because
Right.
last year we were everywhere from Oak Grove Crossing to Railroad
Right.
Street to Park Point. Everybody gets some love from that, and
Yeah,
from what Chicagoland Paving said was that, you know, they're like, well, now that we know what you guys do, full lane width, half lane width, or full road width,
Yeah.
Our costs per yard might come down because they're not doing a bunch of jigsaw puzzles.
Right.
So certainly I'm hoping to stay around 40, if not get a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a significant number of patches if you wanted
Yeah.
to do, you know, everybody's going to get some love if you want to do some
Right.
mill and overlay. It's tough for me to justify a skip patch over an area that's got nothing but bank run and junk.
Mhm.
You know, it's going to make it look good for a little bit, but ultimately it's going to be right back.
So the best use of skip patching is more or less your orange and yellow, and the reds are just a complete redo. Will be your heavier cost, right?
Yeah, it's skip patching, you know, so like I said, skip patching for those areas like in red would be, we're going to get to you, but until we get to you, this will help out. You know, because the
Right.
skip
Yeah.
patch is going to be a full depth 3-inch patch
Mhm.
that, you know,
Yeah.
it sort of bides our time. And if you're in an
Yeah,
area
because we're
that's got-
cutting out a section,
Yeah.
right? We're not just going down 2 inches and taking the top off and putting a new top down. We're actually
it's
going
similar, it's a
down.
little thicker. You know, it's
Yeah.
a 3-inch patch. It does help a little bit. You know, one of the
Right.
best examples of skip patching is Railroad Street. You know, Railroad Street, where it was before, was a low
Yeah.
spot that had failed base.
Yeah,
And I just said, put a couple butt joints in and raise the whole thing. And that made that whole area more passable.
yep.
All right, so what's your pleasure?
One second. What was, he mentioned about Crowley Road?
About what?
Did
Utility
I hear
cuts.
Rob mention about Crowley Road?
Utility cut.
Utility cut.
Utility cut, okay.
So
Well,
you-
I mean, from what I'm understanding, the alleys don't want to be done, and the paver doesn't want to be done. So how about we use that $200,000 and redo Crowley Road that we closed down? Because, well, 2 nights ago we had a big barn fire that lost 6 horses, and the way they had to go was a long route. I was not on that call, but
Probably no
you know,
longer,
the
yeah,
outlet took longer.
it's closed.
yeah, it's vacated.
You're talking about the strip at the stop sign?
Yeah,
That
it's-
utility
it's-
crossing.
And I said that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we shut it down, it was going to be an issue for public safety. So let's use that and re-grade it then.
Crowley's a dirt road, right? Has to be rebuilt too? If
Oh,
we
yeah,
redid it?
it's ridiculous, yeah. Alden Township,
pass the gate.
last I
right?
knew, they just went through and ground it up, turned it
Last-
back into gravel.
Last year, I used all of our skip patch grindings wherever they ground out a skip patch, and I had them deliver all of the millings to Crowley Road, and we leveled it out so that in the case of an emergency, it would be more passable.
That's good.
We almost got the whole thing.
How much of Crowley Road is now the city? I mean, going east on Crowley after the gate.
After the gate.
Yeah, city
going-
limits are only a couple hundred more yards, right?
Well, the road, I
No, it's at
believe-
least a quarter mile.
Yeah, it's still in city limits, but it's been vacated.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Correct.
there's that subdivision.
Goes past Huntington
Goes past it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's another section of
Right, I
Huntington
didn't think so.
Ridge. Well, no,
It
it
goes
goes.
fairly, it goes fairly, it goes.
Does
a
go
good
pretty
distance.
far, because that was a big, piece of the subdivision that was never built.
Alderman Lavallee, without including the street surfaces in between from the eastern alley is about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
Western alley is probably 800-900 because it does stop short. I should say. Western alley 600. So what I'm, Lisa, what I'm talking about with the utility cuts is
Yeah.
up until this past year where we really updated our engineering standards where you have to overcut, not just you can't just patch your trench, you have to overcut and do either side of the road. We have a lot of some of the best examples are Brink Street, Dewey, Kennedy, where all they did was they patched the trench. And when the trench settles out, it sinks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you end up with speed bumps and humps and
Yep.
whoops, and it just makes, if
Yep.
you go down Dewey, you either have to go really fast or slow.
Yeah.
Because if you hit that midpoint and you get
Yeah.
the jounce, it'll
Yep, I
bounce
know
off
what
the
you mean.
ceiling.
Yep. Gotcha.
So areas like that where we don't anticipate being there with a road program in the near future, kind of like Diggins Street. Diggins Street over by the railroad tracks, there was an area I skip patched because we are applying for a grant for it, but in the meantime,
Yeah,
make it passable.
right. Well, and then didn't we do that at the bottom of Hayes? Is that Hayes or Grant
Yes,
by the church?
yes,
Where it was
yes.
a minefield?
And
Yeah,
that's a perfect example where
Yeah.
locally we can attack those little
Yeah.
areas without repaving a whole street.
right,
But in some areas, it's pretty close.
right. Well, and that's, when I think of Lincoln, I mean, there's just a bit on there that to me is like that piece of, that piece of Hayes or Grant. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's insane. But there are, yeah, obviously multiple places around the community that are like that. But that's why I favor the skip patching, because it does spread the resources around the community. Because otherwise, it's just, a lot of people aren't going to see any attention for a long time. And if they're at least seeing something happening in the different neighborhoods, some of the worst things being at least taken care of for temporarily, I think that'll make a big difference.
And like I said, the program this year, like I'm not going to be, last year I didn't skip patch in Shadow Creek. I didn't skip patch in Park Point or Country Brook because those areas I really don't have a blown out area. Could some of
Yeah.
those streets like a main drag, could that be a good candidate for mill and resurface? Absolutely. So that we already have a significant skip patching program from MFT this year that we're completing. So if you wanted to consider the resurfacing of maybe some of those other areas, they would see that potential too.
So are we still doing, or are we doing crack filling?
Not
Is
this
that,
year.
we're
There-
not?
We're kind of out of applicable streets
Oh, okay.
where we send them out with the crack fill truck and they might as well just open the tailgate.
He's not lying.
Yeah, no,
Some areas like maybe, Autumn Glen Drive or Forest, but Downs in the future, maybe up in Huntington Ridge, but it's been a while, and the skip patching program worked out like great last year, so that's why the body continued to do it for this year. So we do have almost twice what we did last year.
great.
All right, so I'm hearing skip patching and maybe Crowley Road. Is that what I'm hearing?
How did Crowley come into the mix?
Oh, I
Just
thought,
asking.
I thought that's what Matt suggested.
All right, 'cause I thought you were talking about the general side of town, because wasn't Crowley taken off the books by the city?
Yeah.
A few administrations ago, or,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, and to
I understand
fix
what
it,
you're
to
saying,
make it passable and worthwhile would be a lot more than a couple $100,000. I mean, it's
right, well-
bad, and the section, I just looked it up, the section that we own, it's a half a mile after the gate. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, quarter mile. Yeah, it's a quarter mile after, yeah, so it's a big,
Take all our money.
it would, yeah.
Well, can I get a motion on what we're gonna do?
We don't necessarily need a motion, we just need a direction to give to Gary so that he can let us know how much we can get done with the additional funds that we have left over.
Oh, okay.
And what locations, we'll need to pick locations, so you can decide on that the next meeting, as long as we have direction.
And if it's something where you'd like to know about how much, we have about, Gary and I talked, I think last year we estimated like $48 per square yard of asphalt for skip patching. We can see what Gary's thoughts are per foot of mill and resurface, if you want that to use as a comparable.
Can we get prices on those three options for the stamped concrete, stamped asphalt, or just redoing the pavers? Because if you did do the whole downtown and asphalt was reasonable, couldn't you just do the whole thing that way
Oh, and
with the stamped asphalt?
The stamped asphalt's dyed at top, so you'd end up, Gary and I.
It's a whole
actually
different
talked-
process?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, you'll end up with, he's like, if you were just to do those diamonds, it would be red, black, red, black,
Oh,
red, black,
okay.
red, black, as it wears away.
Yeah.
So, and to a certain extent, the stamped concrete as well, once it wears down. I think resetting the bricks using the same method that's been there since 2008 would probably be my suggestion. Would just be resetting the existing bricks, making small concrete repairs where the edges of the concrete trough has been ground off or compromised.
Was it mentioned there was an account for that, for the
It's
bricks?
gonna be the leftover money that we're using for
So it
air
could be
street.
applied to that and not disrupt the overall cost, maybe?
So what we can do is get an estimate for the reset of the bricks, how much distance or how much skip patching we can do, and then any distance on the mill and resurfacing with what we have
Yeah.
left over, bring those options back to committee.
Yeah.
It'd be probably easier to decide, see what makes the most sense financially versus what we get for it.
That would be great,
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I would make a motion to direct staff to get the cost of resetting the bricks, of the skip patching and what our options would be there, and then the cost and potential priorities for the remilling,
Okay.
milling and
Mill and overlay.
resurfacing. Is that okay, John?
That's what you wanna do?
Wait a second.
Well, before I do that, we currently don't have an estimate on the first two, right? So we don't have an idea what that would cost.
I know about, if we did another 200,000 in skip patching, I'm assuming, if we say $45 per square yard. Oh man, I hate iPhones.
While you're looking at that, does Matt have any issues with what we talked about?
Do you have any input?
So what's on the table is skip patching, seeing what we can do, resetting the bricks with the money left over, right? And what's the other option with the
Mill and overlay?
mill and overlay? If it's not feasible just to concrete stamp it, which I know the dye's gonna run out in 10 years, but the road is gonna be not as good in 10 years as well. then I say yes, that. I do think something needs to be done with Trolley Road because no one has it, and it's technically in our city. It wasn't our city thing, and we just threw it away. And township's not gonna take it over; they don't want it back. So, and like I said, there's only a few houses on that road. I understand, but still, public safety is a big issue. So I'm good with that motion, though. But something needs to be addressed for next budget year for the Crowley Road. With more of it just the gravel. It doesn't. We don't have to pave it. We can just gravel it. It's pretty much gravel right now.
Are you saying you want to seal coat it? I'd be okay with seal coating it.
Chip seal?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I guess, yeah, with the chip, and then they put that over, yeah, keep it bedded down longer, yeah.
I'd be okay with that. It's pretty cheap.
So you can get to it, right? Yeah. All right, I'll second it.
All's in favor? Or do I got a roll call? All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
All right.
Get the information and bring it back to the meeting,
Why?
July.
All right. I want to stress that we need to make a decision in July. We do
Yep.
not need to put this off another month.
Mm-hmm.
We will have solid information for you to decide on.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Discussion action on the northeast aerator emergency repair.
Yeah, right.
Mike.
On April 27th, the motor on the northeast aerator on the oxidation ditch failed. We had it pulled under Deb's budget authority. The shop came back and basically said that the motor overheated to a point that the repair was going to be almost as much as the cost of a new motor. So their recommendation is that we replace the motor. What you have before you is a proposal from Dami. We asked Cresmary to also bid, and they did not respond with a bid. So the cost to reinstall and replace the motor was $19,776. So our request is to recommend to the City Council approval of this repair.
Replacement.
Yeah, the replacement, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
And this rate was not budgeted before because we didn't know this was gonna fail.
That's correct. This is an unbudgeted repair.
Unforeseen, Alderman Perkins. Unforeseen.
Okay.
Do we not?
We do have funds though for this budget to make this work.
Well, we have funds in our equipment maintenance line item in the sewer water fund. Whether or not we go over at the end is yet to be seen. We do budget additional amount for unforeseen, so if this is it, we might be okay. We'll just have to see how things
Don't we
go.
have a surplus from the generator or something we had?
That's capital improvement. It's different.
But we do have surplus. So if we had to, if that were to come up for a vote.
Yeah. That gives us some flexibility later on in the year when we,
do, remember, we're conservative in those expenses as well, Alderman Perkins, so we do have some extra to work with, just a matter of how much is yet to be seen. It is only June,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I understand.
Did just start.
And currently, the status of this, you got it here, Mike, where it's not the safest thing to operate. So
Well,
it probably should come into compliance.
So the oxidation ditch, we're doing okay right now because the temperature is it's not been as hot as in normal years.
Oh, I mean, the box itself, I mean, it says you're using pieces of wood to do the switching, and the knife switches don't
No,
seat.
that's a different one.
Oh, it is?
You're on the panel.
Oh,
Yeah, you're
that's
on
got to
the
get
panel.
replaced too, right?
Right, we
So
have
we'll,
budget for that.
all right,
Sorry.
we'll get to that. Sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Didn't ask for that one yet.
We're almost there.
So then this could be, the work could be done by August?
He said it'd take about 2 weeks to get the motor, and then they have to make arrangements for the crane to come in,
Okay.
and that's where the biggest hunk of the expense here is.
Okay,
Is bringing the crane in. The
Yeah.
motor itself weighs about 1,100 pounds, and they've got to go all the way to the inside of the oxidation ditch to reset it. So
Yeah.
a lot of it's scheduling
can,
issues.
can we get notice when they're doing that? That sounds pretty cool to watch.
I can try. Sometimes these guys show up. I mean, it's one of those things, it's a small job for them, so they just
Oh, yeah,
show up at the last minute and say,
yeah.
hey, we're here.
Yeah, and then they just do it, yeah.
Now, it says on here Northeast, how many motors do we have?
We have 4.
We have 4.
We
Okay,
have
and they're all about the same age?
They're all 3 years old now.
Yeah, they're all
I'm
new.
not really.
That's what I was gonna think.
Yeah. This seemed to be a freak to me. This happened about 2 weeks after we had ComEd issues on Easter Sunday. And conveniently, 2 weeks later, I lose a motor to overheating. Now, I'll never be able to prove that
Yeah,
in a million years, but we had to have an electrician in on Easter Sunday to get our screw pumps restarted. And when we called ComEd out, they went, oh yeah, we've got a major phase problem here between the 2 legs coming in. So it's possible that we had issues during those electrical issues. Again, I can't prove that. I wish I could. Yeah, I would.
If it's on their side of the equipment, they can investigate.
We need
Not
a
that I'm
mo,
gonna
we need a
get
motion?
anywhere.
Deb, we need a motion?
Yes, roll call, please.
Okay.
Motion to recommend to city council.
I'll make a motion to recommend to city council that we go with the bid from Dami Mechanical for the aerator motor?
Northeast motor.
Northeast motor. Yes,
And gearbox.
and gearbox, okay.
I'll second it.
Second, all right. Perkins?
Yes.
Kriete?
Yes.
I will say yes. And Haderlein?
Yes,
All ayes, motion carries. Okay. Mike, let's talk about the boiler repair.
Okay, this time I'm actually going to save you a little money. So,
You're pushing-
during,
Not really, but okay.
yeah, during budgeting, we had, Charlie had previously put in $50,000 to do tuck pointing on the digester. And after I got here in December and was doing some investigating, the rationale is that the temperature on the digester, in order for the digester to function properly, needs to be between 92 and about 96 degrees. In January, we were sitting down around 74 degrees. So we were essentially getting no treatment out of that digester. I had a couple of contractors look at this because I kept thinking this cannot be. I mean, this digester design is identical to every other digester I've ever operated.
Yeah.
So this isn't making any sense. I happen to be standing next to the boiler and put my hand on the discharge pipe when I should not be able to put my hand on the discharge pipe. It's warm,
Yeah.
but it's not 90-some degrees. So after doing some investigation and having, again, Dami came out and took a look at it, they basically have determined that we need to replace all of the internal parts on the boiler to be able to get us back up to a temperature that will actually create treatment on the digester. Now, the good news is the cost of that is $23,000, $23,150 versus the $50,000 that we had to do the tuck pointing.
So we won't have to do the tuck pointing?
I don't think so.
So
are saving
this,
us money.
this was actually capital improvement funds. This is outside the budget. We were using our sewer water capital improvement account for this. It was pre-approved at the March meeting, I believe.
So our request is that you allow us to allocate the funds from the tuck pointing to the boiler repair. And then recommend to council that we go ahead with this repair at this time.
Make a motion.
Did I get that right, Mike? We don't need it tuck pointing like the following year?
Correct.
This will fix the problem?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I also had.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the 23,150 for repair
To city
for
council.
city council.
Second.
All right, I got a motion on the floor by Perkins and a second by Haderlein. Any discussion? All right, Haderlein,
Yes.
Kriete,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Lavallee, yes. All ayes, motion carries. Right. Let's move on to discussion and action on Marengo Road LS panel replacement. LS, what's LS stand?
Lift station.
All right,
Lift
lift
station.
station. Okay.
During our budgeting this year, our capital budgeting, we had set aside $200,000 to work on lift station electrical panels. A lot of our lift stations are aging, and a lot of the electrical equipment is not in the best of shape from years of use. Lift stations are probably the most abused. Yeah, I mean, it's the harshest environment that you have, because essentially all of the sewage is collecting in the bottom of those stations. Marengo Road is the first station that we looked at. The knife switch on Marengo Road, which is what we would use to switch from line power to generator power, in order to get the knife switch to seal, the operators are having to take a 2x4 and jam the knife switch into place.
I was thinking you needed a piece of wood to flip the switch,
Yeah,
so you didn't electrocute yourself.
Right.
The comment guy sitting over here going,
Yeah.
nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong.
Looks good for my house, right?
Yeah, and as you can see from the pictures, this is not an up to code panel
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. So I talked to several different companies and ultimately got one bid back. Now, I did one of these in Woodstock before I came here, and that panel cost us about $90,000. So Associated came in, Advanced came in at $54,875. This is a smaller station, but this will help us to get the first one safe and up and running this summer. We still have funds available. I'd like to look at a couple of others this summer as well. Route 14 is one that we want to look at, as well as West Diggins. There's some electrical problems with that one that we would like to look at as well.
But this one's the worst.
This one is the one that scares me the most, just because of the switchgear is really bad.
Yeah.
I've seen these nice switches go before,
Yeah.
and they're not pretty when they go. And the problem with this station is I can't leave it on a generator indefinitely. So if we get to the point where we can't close that knife switch, we're in deep trouble at that point. So.
Yeah.
So we already allocated the funds.
We allocated 200,000, so this would leave us about 145 left.
I mean, why does he
We
need our
would need a
approval
motion
again?
to recommend a city council acceptance of the bid.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mike, does the new design have rigid barriers,
Yes,
options to isolate these
Yes.
components?
yeah, we're going to replace the knife switch with
Mm-hmm.
circuit breakers, put a blast barrier in. We're going to combine all three of the existing panels, the telemetry panel,
Yep.
and the other two panels into one.
Yeah.
So we're going to remove we're going to make it so that the float switches that are inside of the station can be changed without having to enter into the well.
Mhm.
So we're going to bring those up into a J box, trying to make it as safe as possible for the operators to work on these.
Mm-hmm. That should be. I mean,
How many of these we have?
We have 11. We have 11, but they're not all in this condition. I mean, we've got a couple that are in pretty good shape. Again, it's just
We got a couple.
Of
It's
11, yeah.
every city has this. I had 18 in Woodstock, and, you know, our plan there was probably gonna take 10 years to do new panels, and we'll get them done.
And these are put in with like every new subdivision gets a lift station in one of these panels, basically.
In many cases. If they can't flow by gravity, yes.
Take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the contract, recommend to council that they approve the contract for the electrical panel and switchgear at the Marengo Road lift station.
I'll second it.
All right, got a motion and a second. Perkins,
Yes.
Haderlein,
Yes.
Kriete,
Yes.
Lavallee, yes. All ayes, motion carries. All right. Okay, moving on, strategic vision. I'll be honest with you, I had to pull this up today and see exactly what the strategic vision was, because I've slipped my mind a little bit. We want to, let's just go over the strategies we had on the strategic vision to familiarize ourselves and our new member
Sure.
with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the strategic vision says Harvard invests in its infrastructure and facilities, our trees, landscaping, gardens, add beauty and enjoyment, state-of-the-art water treatment facilities, ensure residents have clean water and sustainable environment. Roads, sidewalks, water, and sewer systems are well maintained using data and planning systems to prioritize replacements. Fiber optics connect every part of our community to every part of the world. We're already doing a lot of this stuff. We took some votes tonight to update our infrastructure. Fiber optics, has been in about all the neighborhoods now, if not all the neighborhoods. I'm not really sure exactly where they're at.
Does anyone here have
I don't,
service?
well, we do, I don't actually have it.
Does anybody know anybody who has?
I don't know anybody.
Oh, I don't either. Okay.
We are doing locates for drops all over the city. We
Yeah.
got hammered with more of them. From what I've heard, the people that have it are impressed with it.
Okay.
I just want to make a note that Alderman Perkins has left the meeting, 7:30 PM.
The key strategies from the strategic planning for infrastructure. Complete a citywide infrastructure study to establish a replacement plan for streets, sidewalks, water, sewer systems, and trees. We are working on that. Not sure exactly when we're going to have that, but
Well, we're getting there on the roads.
we're getting there roads, we're getting
And
there
the
on the
trees.
and we're getting there on the sewer and the water.
Yeah.
And the trees. So we're
The inventory of the trees is complete.
Okay.
We have that. We're using that data to back up decisions on where and how to take them down. We're using it daily.
Yeah.
The I&I study is ongoing. We are doing the flow monitoring. We've had some rain events that show up on gauges and all that stuff like that. I was just talking to our JN group about it today, so they were hoping for more rain. I don't know if I agree, but they're hoping for more and more events, so that way we can provide a better map of the system. And, they did discuss, sort of towards the end of the monitoring period, we'll have a better idea of where to go next with the process and have a discussion sort of in the fall, early winter.
what are they doing over on Front Street?
Front Street.
Yeah, over there by the
It's Nicor.
Yeah,
Metro parking lot there.
So Nicor was replacing gas main and retiring some services. I know they had some meters that were inside the building that they had to move outside of the building. Just standard stuff for Nicor. And they've actually Miller Pipeline's doing that job. They seem to be very proficient. they had a big old hole open up on the corner of Front and Ayer there right before milk days. And they were smoothing the concrete out, I think, Thursday. And they've been really decent to work with, so.
Okay, great. Second, launch a communication plan to share the street improvement plan with residents. I know we haven't done this, but we don't have the plan yet. So, but I don't know that we have, what's the strategy to get this done exactly? I don't know that.
Once we have the master plan
Yeah.
formalized and adopted, we can provide that on the website.
Yep.
And I'm sure Mr. Lambs can do some creative public works posts. and that as
Everybody
well.
likes his YouTube
Yes.
videos, so, you know,
Yes.
I'm all over that. That's great.
Thank you.
Seek new funding sources, grants, so we can reach our paver management goals. We're doing that. We currently are seeking a grant for some IDOT road work.
Yes, we have grants applied for Garfield from 14 to 173, Brink Street from 14 to Schultz Road, and Oak Grove Road from where we pick up over by Lawrence to where Chemung Township finished on the other side of the bridge. We're partnering maybe with townships on Brink Street and Oak Grove Crossing, Oak Grove Road, if either of those get
Great. Hopefully, hopefully we get one of those. Begin street improvements with the new funding. Got air's going to be kicking off here in about a couple weeks, right?
start until after July 15th.
Just a couple weeks.
And then we will do 25 working days, has to be finished by September 14th. And kind of roll on from there. The last I talked to Schroeder, they were still unsure of where they were at as far as project start. I want to see if I can get out of them at least to have a sit-down meeting. That way we can have a discussion. Okay, you don't know when you're going to start, but can you give me a window? Let's start getting ahead of this so we can get it out to the residents and businesses in downtown.
Great. Engage with Metra, RTA, and PACE, explore ancillary transportation opportunities like pedestrian access, bus access, and vehicle parking access.
We have the bike ped plan going on with Epstein and CMAP right now to
Oh, yeah.
help us get there.
We're also in the process, 3 different phases, basically, of the process of the connectivity from downtown out to Airport Road through the RTA program,
Right.
Right?
CMAP. So all 3 of those are in different phases, but
Yes.
So that's the
it's going to be a
sidewalks, right?
long process, but
Yeah.
we'll get there.
We just started phase 1 of the Route 14 sidewalks.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Establish downtown wireless access.
That will be coming up shortly once we get SURF completely installed, when their fiber is completely installed. And to go back to your question about does anyone have service, the pool will be up and running soon with SURF service as soon as I
Okay.
can get an account rep to call me back.
Okay.
It's been run to the building, correct? It's ready to roll. We just need to get an account set up.
Okay.
Part of the franchise agreement was to have high-speed internet service in all of the city buildings. Previously, the pool did not have any internet. We would graciously allow to rob off the libraries. So now we'll have that, which will be wonderful. And I believe the next startup location is Northfield Park, so that we can do remote locks on the bathroom doors
Yeah,
from
nice.
a city phone. And from there, I'm not quite sure what's next. Probably Milky Way, but they're not done with the fiber out there yet, correct? That's one of the last locations. So we're getting there with
Great.
that. Once we get everything established, then I'll start working on the downtown wireless. It is in the franchise agreement, though.
Very cool.
All right. Pretty much takes care of strategic vision. Do we have any new business? Mike, you had nothing to ask for?
I got it. I feel like we talked about this a little bit, but just Gary's preliminary plans. So the maps in front of you show a couple of different versions of what Gary and I had talked about. The red was some of the initial considerations when we met, when staff met with Gary. Then we shifted some of it, 4th Street was shifted to 2nd Street, since 2nd Street on the north end is pretty bad. And then West McKinley. Areas of East McKinley aren't as bad except for that first block in between McKinley and Hart, where it shows a lot of alligator cracking. Gary kind of put preliminary efforts together on what that would cost. All of the orange and the black markered would be approximately $5.3 million. So he went in an effort to try to keep us under the $4 or so million that we anticipate the bond being for. So if we redact, which is the black marker, and just do the orange, that would be approximately $3.7 million.
And are we thinking these are reconstructs, or what are we thinking?
There's some reconstruct, some overlay. Gary's kind of still looking at some of the data he just got back, so he just wanted to make sure that it's like whatever direction we pick, that we stick to it, because he said he's only got so many revisions in his contract. He's like, I'm happy to do as many as you want, but it's going to cost you.
Could we also then, though, I mean, on a couple of his estimates, he's been over, right?
Alternates?
Huh? Yeah, can we
Alternates.
put some alternates into the bid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and a suggestion that if we're redoing an east-west road and then a north-south road, wouldn't it make sense to actually do the north-south road so that it goes all the way to the east-west road that we're redoing? Like looking at Lincoln, and now it's cut off a block short of Dewey when we're redoing Dewey, so why not just have it be
I think
good all the way
I
to
think
good?
That might be the difference between like a reconstruct and an overlay.
Okay.
And just getting, some of the areas, like the short section of Lincoln Street, that's going to be somewhat of a total reconstruct. And if we look at Alderman Lavallee's map, Lincoln Street south of Diggins is all bank run. So that's going to be entire reconstruct. So that's going to be an expensive street. And I can tell you that the storm sewer in that area is lacking, so there's going to have to be improvements to that. Curb gutter, grading. It's a lot of these streets. And this is part of where the public education is going to come in. Is it's not going to seem like we're getting a lot done, but we are making repairs that will last instead of stuff that we're going to be back to 5 to 10 years. And that's the first step of the process, is just getting putting a shovel in. I have pictures of where the guys have done sanitary repairs or storm repairs, and we do a street cut, and then the first scoop is just silt, and it just shows the layers. And when we take that cut out, you can see asphalt, dirt. So I think that those sections get really expensive quickly. Because believe me, my first thing to Gary was, well, you're already on Dewey, why don't we just take it to the end? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
What do you, got any other new business? No?
No.
Take a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
I thought you had something
Good,
else to say.
let you
Yeah.
get a motion in.
You look like you were going to say something. I was like,
All's in favor?
aye.
Aye.
That's all, folks.
Thank you, John.
Sure. My first one, how do you do?
Good.
Hey, move